Hello, kids. Welcome in. It is 12:04. May I be the first to say good afternoon. Hope you're doing well. It is Friday, October 27. Is that right? Yeah, that's right. Friday, October 27, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. That's our radio station. That's the date. The time just afternoon. As I mentioned, it is episode 443 of our proceedings here until 3 o'clock this afternoon. We'll hand off to the drive with Brian Wilson at that time. Hope you're able to catch every single moment of it, 180 minutes. Whatever time you miss, we're talking about you. So stick right here, whether you're listening via the radio airwaves on 99.7 FM. Perhaps you're listening on an internet streaming platform. You can carry us wherever you go if you download our app, which is a fine way to listen to the radio show. You can also find us on a variety of different other streaming platforms. Excuse me as I get choked up. And then there's Super Talk TV. YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. If you desire to look at my ugly face as I do radio magic, you may do so on Super Talk TV, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. You can also comment on said radio magic on the F&M Bank chat line. It's up and running right there. Go over to your YouTubes or your Facebooks. And I mention this on occasion. I don't mention it as much as I should. Like and subscribe. I mean, that's the way that all of that works, right? If you're enjoying what you see on the YouTubes or the Facebooks or whatever, like and subscribe at your leisure. We appreciate you. Also, episode 443, Bell K likes to entitle these things. They have titles on them. And today's is
Matt Murphy Show. It's Friday. Let's get this done. There's day drinking to do. Libertarian lunch, noon to 3.
You know, I noticed we've got a gathering that you're going to. I'm glad you're coming, by the way, for tomorrow. It'll be fun.
You didn't think I was going to, did you?
Well, no, because you always say no.
Bill. Let's invite Bill. He'll say no.
Well, everyone's invited. If you want to come and watch, speaking of day drinking, Bell K and I do a little. I mean, I noticed you didn't put any alcoholic beverages on the list that you gave me. Well, that's good, right?
Yeah, none of those are approved anyway, so it's like you're breaking the rules.
But you'll do a little. There'll be some mild maintenance cheating tomorrow, right?
I'm planning on taking an Uber there.
Okay, then that answers that question. Bell and I've got a buddy that's coming into town. Anyone's invited, by the way. I think Mac Morey's coming. I invited Cameron Smith. Bell will be there. If you come and expect
I told Johnny B about it, too, so he said they might show up.
Come on. I mean, we're going to Valentine's, downtown on Broadway. Valentine's is where the University of Georgia Alumni Association watch their games on football Saturdays. And my beloved Bulldogs will be taking on the hated Florida Gators. And a buddy of mine's coming into town, Dale Jackson, who is a talk show host in Huntsville, Alabama. And he's a big Gator fan. And he and I have been to the cocktail party on numerous occasions together. There are certain aspects of those trips that we don't talk about ever on radio or otherwise. Although I will tell you, Bell, tomorrow, I promise you, at some point, as long as Georgia's winning, I'll tell you the story of being in Jacksonville, Florida, a day or two before Halloween. Everyone was dressed up in Halloween costumes. It was the night before the cocktail. It was the Friday night before the cocktail party. And I have a large bottle of vodka. I think I have a video of this. I found a bottle of vodka with a gator inside of it. Like, not an actual, it was a
little plastic thing or something?
Well, it was glass. It was blown glass, but it was kind of cool.
Part of the design of the bottle?
Yes. And it had a gator inside of it, and so I was obsessed with drinking that vodka. I felt like if I drank all of that vodka,
you would save the gator.
Well, I would destroy the gator. Oh. The gator, I would drain the swamp. This is long before Trump, right? This is probably 15 years ago, back in my Howl at the Moon days. And I'm embarrassed to tell you that I accomplished my task.
No, you're not. You're proud of it, and that's why you're bragging.
All I know is that I don't remember a lot about the taxi ride back to the hotel. And I don't remember a lot about the morning of the cocktail party because I wasn't awake for most of it. Anyway, cocktail party's tomorrow, and a lot of folks enjoying football. If you want to enjoy it with us, you're invited. I mean, we don't have any special privileges down there. We're just that's where the Bulldogs watch their games, and Jackson is that kind of guy. He likes to run counter to the herd. So
you picked that. Wait a minute. I thought this is the Bulldogs?
Yes, this is the Georgia Bulldogs location. And he's a Florida Gator, so he'll be in the mix.
Oh, okay. I see. I thought you picked it because that's where you would have like-minded individuals with you.
Well, yeah, I selected it.
Oh, okay.
No, I selected it, but he's all in.
Gotcha.
He's fine with all of it. So come on down and see us. Valentine's, I'll be down there. Belle will be down there. We've lots to do, a lot of serious discussions to have regarding the news of the day. Andy Ogles will stop by. Apparently, Andy is landing as we speak, and Congressman Andy Ogles and I were speaking last night. He's going to swing by at some point, which might delay Friday just a little bit, but never you fear. Jay St. Clair will be along in the 1 o'clock hour at some point. But depending on when Andy gets here, we want to talk to him about the new Speaker of the House, the support of Israel, whether that translates to money to Israel, whether they will tie together Israeli funding with Ukrainian funding and what that means. And all of that will be discussed with Andy Ogles coming up in studio in about 20 minutes or so, or depending on his flight, whenever that occurs. Speaking of flights, I've been meaning to discuss this for a while, and First Amendment Freestyle Friday seems like a good time to do it. What in the hell is wrong with Nashville's airport? When I first moved to Mount Juliet about a year ago, the first year I was here, I was up in a camper in Goodlettsville in the Grand Old RV Resort, Convalescence Home, and Bat Meat Market. And then we moved out to fancy Mount Juliet, which we're contractually obligated not to call the ghetto because Charlie Daniels was from there. And so now every day I drive by the airport twice a day. Once on the way in and once on the way out, unless I do something else that takes me a different direction. And I am befuddled. I understand that there is construction going on. I understand that that's going to lead to problems. But has anyone else noticed what's happening at the airport, especially on the weekends? There is a line of traffic trying to get to B&A Airport that is down the interstate for miles, sometimes backed up over the hill, almost to where 40 and 24 come together. It's unbelievable. And I just asked the question on social media a couple of days ago, what is going on? And is someone in charge aware of this? Is this just something that we accept during construction zone time? I have seen people with regularity. So, like Belle K agrees to take Matt Murphy to the airport, and here we are stuck on 40, eastbound, in the turn lane, a mile and a half before the turnoff to go to B&A Airport, and I have seen people with regularity getting out of the cars where they're stuck, getting their luggage out, and walking it. Meantime, 3 lanes over, traffic's moving at 40 miles an hour, 50 miles. It doesn't go, that fast because of the backup. And I'm wondering to myself, is anyone in charge concerned about this? Because it seems that this is a recipe for someone to get hit by a car. It seems a recipe for disaster. One would presume that others have noticed this and they're trying to do something about it. I am told that part of the problem is they moved the cell phone lot or they moved the cell lot where people go to wait for people to land, whatever. I don't know what the genesis of the problem is, but one would suggest that because of the nature of the construction going on, that this is a problem that's going to exist for some time down the road, and one would think that someone would want to do something about it before somebody gets killed. Or maybe that's just me. Speaking of someone getting killed or numbers of people getting killed, let's update you on Lewiston, Maine. Authorities.
Hey, before you get into the heavy stuff.
Yes.
I just real quickly, I thought we might get an update from.
I got a lot of recommendations as to what to do about the murder hornet yesterday. We had a murder hornet in the studio. If you missed it yesterday, there was a live creature in the studio buzzing the tower, if you will.
Have you seen it today?
I have not. I've not seen it today at all. And I did not see it on the latter half of the show yesterday. So what I'm thinking happened, he got roused up when I turned on the lights because Chris Hand has been out of town. He was out of town yesterday, so all the lights were off for 3 hours prior to the show yesterday. I turned the lights on, all the studio lights, if you will, and we kind of riled him up, and he calmed down eventually. I presume, much like this SOB in Maine, I presume the murder hornet is dead. But I don't know.
Yeah, there's nothing to eat in there for him, so he's going to die eventually.
But I don't know. So
I just want to make sure you weren't going to get attacked while you were doing the show.
We do not have a murder hornet sighting today. I looked for him yesterday. I figured I might find him on the floor somewhere, but I could not. I couldn't rouse him out. So he might have crawled into a hole somewhere and died, or he might be lying in wait to pounce during one of these segments on the show and attack at my neck and suck out the vital juices. I don't know how they do all of that, but I was pretty sure yesterday that he was trying to get to my ear so he could get into my brain. I don't like hornets. I don't like wasps. I don't like spiders. Those are the three, and not necessarily in that order. Everything else I can handle, even politicians. But I repeat myself. Massive manhunt remains underway for Robert Card, obviously the you-know-what Army reservist, 40-year-old who authorities have identified as the sole suspect in the Wednesday night mass shooting that left 18 individuals dead. Law enforcement officers are continuing to search in and around the Lewiston, Maine area, including Lisbon, Monmouth, and other areas. Law enforcement executed search warrants on properties belonging to Card, even calling out on a megaphone requesting that he turn himself over. After 2 hours, the officers left. They are now, officials say, deploying dive teams in their search effort over local waterways as one of his boats remains unaccounted for. Authorities are searching the Androscoggin River, the Kennebec River, if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, I apologize, and elsewhere. So the belief that one of two things is going on at this point, it seems, because he left some form of note that is not necessarily being described as a suicide note, but that's kind of where they're leading us. And the belief is that he perhaps took his boat and killed himself. One can only hope. Or that he wants authorities to believe that he did so. So investigators continue the search effort, officials conducting those boat-based search efforts in the belief that he took a boat and left in the boat with the intent on killing himself, and we can hope so. There is no motive thus far for the killings in the two locations in Lewiston, Maine. So there's your update. If we find out anything else or if there are any press conferences during our time, we will deliver that to you. We have an update on the Israeli conflict with Hamas in as much as America is involved. There were some strikes last night, American forces striking back, hitting some Iran-linked locations. Iranian-backed militants have been striking U.S. air bases in the Middle Eastern region, and the United States has now hit at least 2 sites in Syria that are being used by Iranian-backed militants as Iran sends its foreign minister over here to admonish us that we better not do any more, otherwise we get ourselves in a war. He was in New York City, saying these things. I'll tell you exactly what he said coming up in just a moment and what America ought to do about it, plus your telephone calls. I mentioned during the cross, too. I don't know if you've heard this story because the mainstream media is not talking about it. The Robert E. Lee statue that got removed out of Charlottesville has now been melted down. They did it quietly, secretly, some time ago.
Cameron posted video of them melting it down yesterday on his Twitter.
Cameron Smith?
Yeah.
Was that? I didn't see it. I'll need to look. I may have seen that, but I assumed it was just random video of something melting.
I thought it was actually.
I mean,
you could be right.
It might have been. I don't know. We'll find out together. It's 1219 Super Talk 99.7 WTN 615-737-9986. It's a First Amendment Freestyle Friday. Andy Ogles coming up this hour. Jay St. Clair next hour. Mac Attack in the 2 o'clock hour. Just getting underway on the Murphy Show on Super Talk. No better time to purchase a gun safe than right now at Nashville Safe House. Let's discuss it. Friends, huge rebates right now with the Safe House. And you combine that with the fact that sales tax free is back, baby, then you can get over $1,000 in discounts on select safes. The Safe House has the largest selection of safes in the Southeast. They are the largest Browning safe dealer in the United States of America, meaning they're the largest Browning safe dealer in the world, meaning they're the largest Browning safe dealer in the universe. And if someone in the universe wants to challenge me on that, I'm ready for it. They offer home delivery and installation with their award-winning Safe House delivery crew. By the way, Mark wants to thank Governor Lee and the rest of the gang that worked tirelessly to make the sales tax-free holiday a reality for the foreseeable future regarding gun safes, because we want you to protect those things that protect you and your family. And you do so with a good safe from Nashville Safe House. They have sizes to fit your budget. They have sizes to fit your room. All you need to do is go by and see the incredible selection at Nashville Safe House. You can start online at NashvilleSafeHouse.com, and you can finish up on 4th Avenue South in Nashville, right across the street from City Cemetery. Tell Mark and the crew, Matt Murphy sent you to Nashville Safe House. Super Talk 99.7 WTN, Matt Murphy and you. It's 1224. Thank you for being around. Your calls, Your comments on the super text line, appreciated, 615-737-9986, as it is a First Amendment Freestyle Friday on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I apologize. We had a caller that wanted to talk about the B&A airport situation, and I did not get to you before the break. I apologize for that. We'll try to get to your calls as swiftly as possible as they come in. Your super text as well, 615-737-9986. I mentioned the airport as, I mean, it was just an observable fact that the airport looks messed up. And I'm curious if any airport officials have commented on it, or is this something we're just accepting during the construction? Seems untenable for me, or to me. But I don't control the airport. In the meantime, speaking of untenable, the situation involving the Israeli people, Gaza, it is obviously a very serious situation. Ground operations are expanding throughout Gaza, according to the Israeli Defense Forces there. We had Iranian targets targeted by Americans last evening as, hold on, let me pull up my, the United States of America hit 2 sites in Syria that were being used by Iranian-backed militants, just as Iran sent its foreign minister to speak at the United Nations and basically threatened the United States of America. If the Iranian foreign minister warned the United States, and this is on American soil, which is interesting to me. Iranian's foreign minister accused the United States of directing Israel's war against Hamas in the Gaza Strip, something that, by the way, we're not doing. Saying in a speech at the United Nations in the United States of America that the United States of America, quote, will not be spared from this fire if the fighting is not halted. Quote, we've always supported, I would play it for you, but, you know, it's foreign language. We have always supported peace and security, but today in New York and the United Nations, I say frankly to the American statesmen who are now managing the genocide in Palestine, we do not welcome an expansion of this war in the region. But I warn, he said. If the genocide in Gaza continues, they will not be spared from this fire. It is our home, and West Asia is our region. We do not compromise with any party and any side, and we have no reservation when it comes to others' homes' security. Why do we allow this garbage to continue to happen on American soil? The Biden administration demonstrates weakness at every turn. They've demonstrated weakness with the Iranian government from the time that he stepped into the office. Do we not understand that you project weakness to these people and they're going to exploit the weakness that you project? The Obama administration did the same thing. When Trump was in office, there was a projection of strength. And the Iranians tamped down their messing around in that region of the world. Hamas doesn't do anything without the permission of the Iranians. And they are funded by the Iranians. So while the monies might not have directly flowed from the United States when we freed up some of those money to Qatar, they most certainly were emboldened by the lack of authority. Or the lack of leadership in the White House. The minister, I should say, of Foreign Affairs for the Islamic Republic of Iran called for the genocide and forced displacement of the people of Gaza to stop, his language, and urged the wider humanitarian aid needs to be delivered to the area. Well, I'm sure he believes that because that benefits Hamas and by extension benefits the Iranian goals in that region. Why do we allow this guy, this schmuck, I use it intentionally, when he finished threatening the United States of America, he left the United Nations and got into a car provided by the United Nations and by extension the United States of America and went to a hotel under security provided by the United States of America and the United Nations. And by the way, that's the same thing because the United States of America pays for most of the security surrounding the United Nations in New York City. And he was put up in a fancy 5-star hotel. What we should have done was escorted him to the damn airport. Thank you for your time in New York City. Goodbye. For the life of me, I don't understand why we put up with this anymore. I'm talking about the United Nations being in the United States of America. The United Nations does not represent. It is not a beacon of freedom and liberty around the world anymore. You talk about proportionality to the point of ridiculousness, the United Nations. 1230, Super Talk 99.7 WTN, 615-737-9986. If you'd like to be a part of the show, anything on your mind, it's a First Amendment Freestyle Friday on Super Talk. Hey, friends, it's Matt Murphy, and let's talk about your heater for a moment because it's getting cold over the next several days. By Halloween, next Tuesday, the anticipated high is like 50. We're expecting lows to dip down to the freezing zone, and that means if your heater's working properly, you're A-OK. If you've had a fishing out to maintenance your heating unit, then well, more power to you. You're going to be fine. But if you've not done that already, make the call that so many others have made. Jeff Eddy and Efficient Heating and Cooling can come out and make sure that your unit is running correctly. If you crank it up and you smell that smell or something seems wrong, they will get out to you swiftly. They will respond to what ails your system. They will not try to upsell you on anything. They will not charge you overtime rates at any point during the day. Their invoices remain low for this reason. And they remain the most trusted source of information regarding your heater or your AC when the time is right that I know of. And I trust them in my home, and I know you can trust them in yours. Efficient Heating and Cooling. Jeff Eddy, call his team today. EfficientHVAC.net. EfficientHVAC.net. Remember, they offer free financing. Ask them about that when the time comes to replace your unit. And they're a diamond contractor with Mitsubishi Electric and Elite Pro partner with Rheem. Call today or better yet, look them up online, efficienthvac.net, 615-784-4424, 784-4424 for Efficient. Super Talk 99.7 WTN 1235. Andy Ogles at 105. He's just off the plane and headed our way. Jay St. Clair and Fry Jay at 1:35 this afternoon. Episode 443 is a First Amendment Freestyle Friday on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. The Robert E. Lee statue that was a subject of much debate in the aftermath of some of the protests involving Charlottesville, Virginia, has now been melted down. That statue was the focal point of a protest in 2017 upon suggestion that some of these monuments be removed. Well, it was subsequently removed, and it's now been destroyed. The Jefferson School African American Heritage Center, a Charlottesville-based Black History museum, said Thursday that the statue had been destroyed. The Charlottesville City Council voted in 2021 to donate the statue to the Heritage Center after it proposed a Swords into Plowshares project that would melt the statue and repurpose it into public art that expresses the city's values of inclusivity and racial justice. The statue was taken down in 2021. 4 years after the Charlottesville protest. So I'm not here to relitigate the protest. I'm here to suggest to you that if we get into the business of erasing American history, instead of embracing American history, the good and the bad and the neutral, we are in a dangerous place in this country. And I'm a little bit surprised that more people aren't clapping back about this type of thing. We've seen it all over the country in the aftermath of some of the protests that followed the election of Donald J. Trump. At a news conference yesterday, Heritage City officials, or Heritage Center officials, I should say, said they now plan to solicit proposals about how to repurpose the statue. The center hopes to pick an artist to next year that is conducting a $4 million fundraising campaign. Well, good luck with that. Two groups had sought to preserve the statue. They sued last year to try to block the city from donating it to the Heritage Center, but a judge tossed out their case. Because rules are not applied equitably when it comes to things like this. Now, if you don't believe that this can come to our corner of the world, well, it already has. When I first moved to Nashville, Tennessee, I was confused. I went up to the state capitol, and I walked around the state capitol. And I was as confused as, what was his name? Carmack, right? The statue of Carmack up at the state capitol. Bell doesn't even know what I'm talking about. I think I have his name correct. There was an area outside of the state capitol. I got here in November of 2021. There was an area outside of the state capitol that looked like it had previously had a statue on it, or I wasn't really sure what the hell was going on. And then I discovered that statue got torn down. Now, I understand, and I hope that you do as well, reassessing the value that we place in certain statues in certain places. Meaning, I understand the debate that went on about the Nathan Bedford Forrest bust being inside of the state capitol. I get it. I understand that for many Tennessee residents, Nathan Bedford Forrest does not represent positivity in this state. As a matter of fact, quite the opposite. And once again, I'm not here to debate the history of Nathan Bedford Forrest, but I would suggest to you that it is entirely appropriate and proper that elected officials determine whether or not we will continue to allow a place of honor for certain individuals from the past that did not necessarily reflect the values or do not necessarily reflect the values that we have in the present. Those places of honor should be reserved for those who deserve it. However, there's a big difference between that and erasing American history in the fashion that many on the BLM side of things want to do. And Kathy writes in, and I agree with you, Kathy, I'm kind of moving toward that direction. Now that the statue has been melted down, can we all agree and get on our knees and thank God or whomever you worship that our long national nightmare is over, Kathy writes. Right, because that's going to solve everything, right? I mean, when I first got into town, there was still that Bedford Forrest statue on the side of 65. They removed that, and race relations have totally and completely been repaired in the United States of America because we have erased that portion of America's history. What I've long argued is that many of these monuments to the Confederate past should be studied and remembered from a historical standpoint. Many of them came about in the 1880s and 1890s and early 1900s in the aftermath of the Civil War, where there were still people alive that understood it. There's still people alive that fought in it. And they were attempting to either, well, they were remembering and honoring aspects of their past that perhaps we're not going to honor any longer in the United States of America. But that does not mean that we cannot study and remember the reasons behind why those statues were put there in the first place. That is far superior than destroying them. And what I fear, and what I see happening right now, Americans get worn down on this stuff to the point that they just don't want to deal with it anymore. And that's when these ridiculous decisions are made to literally erase American history, to literally melt down American history. And as Jason points out on the super text line, and Jason, you're exactly right, and thank you, Jason, for your concern about the murder hornet. He has not been seen today, by the way, Jason. Several of you are asking about the status of the murder hornet. He is not present, at least as far as I can see. He's either no. That song's triggering me. I don't like it. Is he? Some have suggested that he's under the counter. I don't like that at all. Maybe he's building a nice home. Maybe he has found himself a food source, and he's plotting his revenge. I don't know, but I've not seen him today. But Jason points out, any statues of men from the past will not reflect the sentiments of the future, nor are they designed to. In the meantime, I find it fascinating that we live in a world where there are statues of George Floyd that remain unscathed and statues of Robert E. Lee that are being melted down, and not a lot of people have anything to say about it. Now, once again, I have zero interest in relitigating the Civil War, but I do recognize that a country is doomed to repeat its failures if it ignores its history, and it is doomed to, well, let's put it this way. If we go down this process, what happens to, I don't know, Woodrow Wilson? What happens to Franklin Delano Roosevelt? What happens to George Washington? What happens to Thomas Jefferson? There are multiple monuments of all of these people all across the United States of America. And I choose those names intentionally because I recognize that some of you are going to have a hell of a lot more respect for some of those people than others. But that does not mean that we should not remember America's history in the way that we always have done. And frankly, I'll be honest with you, I thought I'd bring this subject up and there would be more reaction to it. But maybe we've resigned ourselves to the fact that the leftist in 2017 and 2018 won. Just kind of give up on that. 1244 Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Jamal Bowman is a winner today. I mean, speaking of winner, how can you not reflect that this guy's a winner? Oh, sure, he's going to be charged with pulling a fake fire alarm in a government installation, but nobody's going to do anything to him because it's a two-tiered justice system, and baby, they're on the good side of that tiered system. The raw footage has Representative Jamal Bowman removing warning signs before pulling the fire alarm in the House office building last month. Not that that matters, because Jamal Bowman has a sweetheart deal in front of him, according to, well, Jamal Bowman. He says that a deal, I'll let him talk to you about it. Jamal Bowman isn't worried about any of this because he says the sweetheart deal that he struck is in place, and Democrat D.C. Attorney General Brian Schwalb says he doesn't have to worry about it. Okay, I cannot, Bell left, and I was trying to play that audio, and we don't have the audio up in the other side of the room, so I'll have to wait on that audio. But just believe me when I tell you that Jamal Bowman knows that he has struck a deal with his fellow Democrat D.C. Attorney General Brian Schwalb, and that the fire alarm charges will be expunged from his record once he pays a fine. He's guilty of a crime. Had he been a Republican, there would be calls for him to be removed from Congress. However, the Republicans don't seem to play by those same rules. Merrick Garland said, we don't have one set of rules for Democrats and another set of rules for Republicans. Well, it certainly seems so. If you're a Democrat, breaking the law is just fine. You'll get off. Don't worry about it. If you're a Republican, not so much. And especially if you're John Q. Citizen and you come to the Capitol building for a redress of grievances, better stay away. You might get caught up in some sort of January 6th nonsense. Here's the piece. Give me some audio there, Bell. I was trying to play this a second ago. Here's the piece from Jamal Bowman explaining why he's not going to get into any trouble. Or maybe not. You got me up there? I don't know what's going on then. Well, everybody's up, so. Oh, it's just coming out of one channel. That's why. Well, trust me when I tell you,
Punch the board on the side that doesn't have the channel coming out of it.
I already did.
You didn't hit it hard enough. Get the hammer.
Well, one way, let's just suggest that Jamal Bowman said what I said that he said, because I know that he did, because I listened to it last night. 1247 Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Back in a moment. The Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief wants to hear from you. They want to see you. They want to help you. If you experience elbow pain, neck pain, knee pain, any sort of pain on your body, and obviously back pain, they can assist you at the Dr. Gill Center. They've been doing it for over 30 years, and they are good at what they do. Friends, when they started their chiropractic care center, Dr. Gill understood that he needed to bring the latest technology, and he did with spinal decompression. Now just about everybody's got spinal decompression. Dr. Gill is the originator of the spinal decompression technology in Middle Tennessee. All of this is designed, whether it's red light therapy or their Class 5 laser system, whatever it might be, to pinpoint inflammation in your body, reduce pain, reduce swelling, and accelerate healing. And they do it without the need for pills and without the need for surgery. That's what it's all about. That's why they say don't take a pill. Call Dr. Gill. They've been helping for over 30 years, and now it's time to help you. Give them a call today and schedule this appointment. Say pain relief and say my name, Matt Murphy. 615-882-4838. That's 615-882-4838 for the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief in Franklin. All right, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Is that Lieutenant Bergen? Is that correct? All right, we're going to get to Lieutenant Bergen real quick, and Congressman Andy Ogles has just joined us in studio, and we'll talk to Andy about all of the happenings in Washington, D.C., and his thoughts on said same. Lieutenant Bergen, good afternoon. How are you?
No, it's Lieutenant Bob McFadden from Bergen County, New Jersey.
My apologies, Lieutenant. I only read what's on my screen.
I wasn't razzing you, man. I was just anyway. I wanted to talk about the statue. We had a statue in New Jersey, Richard Stockton College. It was a small bust, but it had to be removed and destroyed. Richard Stockton was one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence, but it had to be destroyed because he had one slave.
Right, and if you naturally, and it's my point, Lieutenant, that if you naturally, I'm sorry to suspend the conversation early, but I do need to move on. Thank you for the call. I appreciate you. The point is well taken, that if you begin the process of destroying history because of some of the players being nuanced individuals in terms of times that they lived in, obviously Jefferson was a slave owner. George Washington was a slave owner. Many of our founding fathers were slave owners. We look back on that and we see slavery as what it is, an evil. It was an evil then. It is an evil now. They did not look at it the same way. And frankly, some of the founding fathers, as you do your research and your reading, they were concerned with the evils of slavery even during those times, but they allowed it to happen and participated in Jefferson's case, participated in the process. So we understand that. You can understand that without destroying your history. And that's the point that I was making. And thank you for noting it, Lieutenant. I appreciate the call. Fresh off a flight, Congressman Andy Ogles, we've only got a minute or two before we have to take a timeout at the top of the hour. I'll tell you what we'll do. I'll get us to the top of the hour, and then we'll reset at the top with Congressman Andy Ogles in studio with us for a good 30 minutes, giving us a rundown on everything that's been going on in Washington, D.C. We'll find out his thoughts on the new speaker, Mike Johnson, who made an appearance on Sean Hannity's show last night. I watched that with rapt attention, ears up. And I think Mike Johnson said a lot of wonderful things about the future of our United States of America. Now, in the near term, they're going to have to make a few concessions considering the timing of some of the appropriations bills that have to get passed in the next 21 days. I think it might even be 20 days now. There's not a lot of time to get some of this done. We'll speak to Congressman Ogles about that and a few other matters as well. Plus, take your telephone calls. There's also some good news from the Gill Center. There's some polling data about the state of Tennessee that I want to tell you about with regard to our congressional representatives, our senators, and how we feel the state of Tennessee is doing. We'll talk about that. We'll give you an update on Lewiston, Maine. It's pretty basic at this point. This individual who is a wanted suspect for the killing of 18 people and wounding of 13 is either dead or he has attempted to make it appear that he is tried to kill himself. That is the general consensus for those on the ground. We'll give you an update on that as well. One down, two to go. Congressman Andy Ogles back with us in just a moment on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hey, friends, it's Matt Murphy, and for most of us who begin to lose our hearing, and I know I count myself among this number, and my hearing loss has not gotten to the point where I need a specific hearing device, but it will come at some point during my lifetime, probably sooner rather than later. When it comes to you, did you know that most people wait 2 years beyond when they should go and see someone about their hearing? Brentwood Hearing Center is here to tell you that they have better hearing for a better life. They can assist you in any and all of your hearing needs, and they've got the brand new technology that's just amazing. I sat down with Ronnie at Brentwood Hearing Center some months ago. We talked for a good 20 minutes or so about hearing device technology. And it was at that point that he pulled the hearing aid out of his ear. I had no idea, A, that he had a hearing device in his ear, and B, I had no idea that the technology had advanced to the point that they are the size they are, and the technology is just getting better every single day. Right now, they have the Paradise Life hearing aid. That's the world's first completely waterproof hearing device. And you can find out more about this by calling Brentwood Hearing Center. Better hearing for a better life, 615-377-0420. 377-0420 for Brentwood Hearing Center. Once again, better hearing for a better life. By the way, I want to correct something that we repeated yesterday. Now, we told you the source that we had on this yesterday, and it was Ryan Fournier. Ryan Fournier is normally a pretty good source on social media, but he is now walking back the story that Mark Meadows ever wore a wire at the White House. That thing dropped like it dropped like a fart in a car is the way that it dropped yesterday. And I'm like, my goodness gracious. And I made the comment that if Mark Meadows, as chief of staff in the White House, ever wore a wire without the knowledge of the president of the United States, then that is not just an offense to our system of government. It's a criminal offense, and the man needs to be arrested. Well, it seems that some people were putting these floaters out there, and Fournier did not fully vet some of the information that he had. And just because we repeated it, now we repeated it as second and third hand information yesterday, but because I repeated it, wanted to make sure that during the same time frame that I corrected the error. So there you go, from Fournier to Matt Murphy to you to Congressman Andy Ogles of the 5th Congressional District. He's fresh off a plane. He's back in Tennessee. He's got to feel good about that. He joins us in studio.
It's great to be home now. Now the frustrating part is we landed on time and then we sat on the runway for like half an hour because there was no gate agent. Like we just literally sat there. Meanwhile, I'm watching my watch, thinking I'm supposed to be in studio in just a few minutes. But anyway, that's first world problems I got here. Here we are.
I have a bone to pick with him real quick.
Okay.
The other day when we were watching the vote count for Johnson for Speaker, you and I were making fun of people that would stand up and give any sort of a speech whatsoever or say anything other than Johnson.
You know these guys that were doing that, making little proclamations about home to the great state of Andrew, whatever. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Mr. Ogles happened to be one of those people that said more than just Johnson.
I did. I said fighter and uniter.
And he tweeted that out on his Twitter channel. So I quote tweeted him and I said that anybody who said anything other than Johnson or Jeffries should be tarred and feathered and made to sleep with Nancy Pelosi. Obviously, the Nancy Pelosi part being the most egregious and hurtful part of the tweet.
Yeah, I mean, if you gave me the choice of the two, I'm going tarred and feathered.
Right.
I mean, yeah.
I got suspended
from Twitter.
Because you're just a meanie.
Because I said tarred and feathered. For violence. I was flagged for violence and suspended.
Didn't we have this show meeting that we're nice to Andy now? Didn't we have that show meeting?
Absolutely.
I thought we did.
We're all good. But to your point, though, I guarantee you there's some radical imams, there's some radical Palestinians, there's radical elements of Hamas who have Twitter accounts and they don't do a darn thing.
That's
and then
true.
Meanwhile, they pick on you for having a sense of humor.
The Ayatollah of Iran has an active Twitter account, and I'm suspended for violence.
Well,
I think it's deserved.
I'm going to stand my ground. Mike Johnson is a fighter and a uniter.
So obviously,
and it rhymes. It sounded good.
Well, no, it sounded pretty good. I mean, at least you were pithy. I mean, if you're going to say something additional to the name, just be pithy. These guys that were like, from the great state of New York, be quiet. Just say Hakeem Jeffries and sit down.
Right.
Not the party convention.
Exactly.
So Mike Johnson, a name that, I mean, maybe for you guys in the halls of Congress as you sit and debate and discuss, maybe not a name unknown to you as a possible candidate, but for most of us, a name that kind of popped up seemingly out of nowhere. Tell us what you know about Mike Johnson.
Well, I mean, so Mike is a friend. He is at one point almost joined the Freedom Caucus, so that tells you where he falls on his political leanings. He took the path to leadership, and so he was a vice chair of conference. And unfortunately, once you take that role, most people kind of fall into the trapping, and they'll make a few bad votes. They'll vote for every CR. They'll vote for every Omni and those types of things. And so that hurts his score. But, his instinct is to be Freedom Caucus-esque, cut spending, secure the border, all those things that you and I would want. He's a man of faith, deep conviction in his faith. And so, again, you know where his moorings are. And with Mike, there's not going to be subterfuge. There's not going to be backstabbing. There's no backroom deals. He's going to tell you his yeses are going to be yes, his nos are going to be no. And at a time such as this, he's really a breath of fresh air for Congress.
You, obviously, you were amongst those that had a lot of consternation about Kevin McCarthy last January. And we've discussed all of those issues that you felt like you needed to see resolved, and it wasn't a personality conflict;
right.
It was a rules conflict. You wanted to see certain rules in place that would insist on regular order, and that would insist on appropriations bills. And while McCarthy did not come through on all of the appropriations bills singularly, individually, and not in this omnibus spending package, You've expressed that you were fearful that the timing in all of this was wrong for the removal of McCarthy, which is why you ultimately did not vote for his removal.
That's right.
And now here we are. We got a new speaker, and tick tock, less than 3 weeks, I guess.
Yeah. When we return, we'll have less than 17 days. So it's one of those moments of, you hate to be right, but this guarantees that we're going to have a continuing resolution. Now, Speaker Johnson, has floated, January or April. The Freedom Caucus has made it clear January, no longer. I mean, when it comes to a continuing resolution, shorter is always better. But the problem that you run into historically, and again, this is why the timing of the motion to vacate was a problem, is if you get into December, what the Senate will do is they literally will wait to, the day before Christmas Eve, then they'll send over an omnibus bill, and members at that point have either gone home or wanting to go home, and they'll just vote for anything. And so the American people get screwed. I'll just be honest. And so if you're going to do a CR at this point, which is inevitable, and look, we passed an appropriations bill right before we left. We're going to pass another one next week. I mean, we're pushing through. We're going to try to get these done, but the reality is it's going to be a CR, but you've got to get over the Christmas hump. Otherwise, American people get screwed by an omnibus.
Help those that maybe don't quite understand. What's the difference between a CR, a continuing resolution, and the normal procedure? So
the big difference between a CR and Omni is just typically the length of time and the size of the funding package. So you're talking about, it could be as short as 3 days. It could be as short as a day simply for technical reasons. To, like we're talking about, a continuing resolution that'll get you through Christmas. And Omni would typically take you past the November elections. And so all the funding's done, all the money's spent, and the House of Representatives, if we were to do that, we lose our leverage. We have the purse strings. And so if you give that up to the Senate, then it's over.
Is there still leverage with regard to a continuing resolution to accomplish some of the goals that we've talked about? And we'll get into some of the specifics of them in a moment, like, southern border security funding, for example. Do you still have the leverage with a CR from now until January to make some of those adjustments?
Yeah, and that's the likely thing that will happen is there'll be some sort of border security element to the continuing resolution. You'll send it to the Senate and then force the Senate to vote no on not shutting down the government and border security, which is an 85-90% issue across the country now. I mean, you have Democrat mayors saying we've had enough, and so
Eric Adams being one of them, believe it or not,
exactly,
the mayor of New York City, the largest city in America. Yeah. But did you see the poll where 2/3 of New York City blame the Democrats, blame Biden
for the migrant crisis and crime? Yeah. And so now this is a winnable issue for us. It's been a winnable issue, but sometimes it takes a minute for some of the members of Congress, quite frankly, to have a spine and courage. And so here we are. But now keep in mind, because it is a continuing resolution, because you need a Democrat-controlled Senate to vote for it, it would not be as aggressive as I would want. It won't be as aggressive as you would want as far as, securing the border. So that's why, going back to your question, you've got to pass the appropriations bills. So by law, we're supposed to pass 12 appropriations bills. You send them to the Senate. The Senate sends something back that's totally crappy. But then you go into conference and you negotiate. And so that's the process. And in that back and forth, maybe the Republicans, we need something over here on border security, but then the Democrats are really fighting for something over here in DOD or something else like that. And there's this give and take. So everybody kind of walks away with something. Now, again, we'll be in a better place after the 24 election when we have the Senate and we have the White House, because then we can move conservative legislation and save the republic. But right now, it's a slugfest and it's a tug of war.
So if you pass the CR until January, and you mentioned that the Freedom Caucus, that's kind of a line in the sand for them,
for
absolutely.
You guys? Yeah, absolutely.
That you don't want to wait until the spring.
No.
Because, by the time spring rolls around, now we've got primary season. And now we're in election zone. Believe it or not, April, you're in the midst of election zone for the House of Representatives by then and for the presidency. So what happens between now and January I get that you're continuing to fund the government until January, but you still have to pass these budgets, right?
So we just passed an appropriations bill right before we left. As soon as we get back, we'll pass another one. That'll take us to 7, so we'll have roughly 5 more. And we've gotten the bigger chunks out of the way, except for education and labor. That one will be a tough one. But that being said, that's what happens between now and January. Now and Christmas is we're getting all those passed. You get them transmitted to the Senate and force them to the table on conference. And it's not a pretty process, but that's what the Founding Fathers intended, and here we are.
Other than not getting the appropriations bills done, and for me, and we don't have to go over it again necessarily because we've talked about it, till the cows come home, but that was the fact that we left for 6 weeks, and you and I discussed it over the phone. Yeah. The fact that McCarthy allowed that to happen, believing that he would get the bills done. I think he did believe that, but he didn't. And, and maybe you disagree, just based on the
value. All right. So let me explain the calendar.
Did he think that he would? Let me ask you this then. I'll ask it this way. Do you feel like McCarthy got a little too cute, where he thought he would have the Freedom Caucus over a barrel late in the game?
Yes, absolutely. So when we left on July 31st, and without passing all the appropriations bills, that literally cemented the fact that there was going to be a continuing resolution. Because even when we get back, because we were gone August, the first week of September, and then you're left with 3 weeks, the calendar that they rolled out to pass all the bills was 45 days.
So they knew.
Right. So literally we get back, and it was a 40 to 45 day plan to pass the approps, but yet we only have 21 days left. So that tells you they knew when we left a CR was on the horizon. Now, where Matt Gaetz decided to go ahead and just pull the trigger on the motion to vacate was primarily because of that reason right there. And is the fact that, we did a 30 or a 45 day CR. He warned, if you do that, we're going to shut down, or he's going to motion to vacate, and he kept his word. And quite frankly, he went on. He made it clear. I was one of those that was whipping for a 7-day CR, that we could do a rolling 7-day CR that would give us, basically you do a CR for 7 days. That allows you to pass appropriations bill or 2, and there's an accountability mechanism in there that if we don't do our job, then we would shut down the government. So that puts pressure on us to actually stay there and work. And on the 12th, I actually put out a Dear Colleague letter to all the members of Congress with Republicans saying we shouldn't leave. We should not leave again. We should work weekends. We should work nights. We should not leave. You know what they did? They sent us home.
Well, sure. So is it fair to say that you're friends with Matt Gaetz? I mean, I know you've had him. You've
Yeah,
had
very
him.
much.
I mean,
Yeah.
he's been in the state, and you guys are friendly. Is this an example of two individuals that see eye to eye on most everything? You guys saw the way to handle this a little bit differently, but you can do that. You can see things a little bit. He gets where you're coming from on this, and you get where he's coming from.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, we have a job to do, and those 12 appropriations bills, and it's nerdy, and most people don't care, but we can't do anything until we pass those 12 appropriations bills. And if we don't pass those 12 appropriations bills, there's going to be $1.5 trillion, omni in December, which I don't want. You don't want, right? And so we have to get that done.
That's where the pork comes from.
That's
everybody.
right. That's where we get jammed.
Yeah.
And to your point, whatever size Omni we get, 40% of it would be for wokeness and, transgender surgeries in the military and all this stuff where you've seen the weaponization of the government against us. And so the last thing I want to do is fund that. We've got to get these appropriations bills passed.
So outside of not getting the job done with the appropriations bills, we did get back to more of a regular order of things. You were pleased with that aspect of what we've seen happening over the last 8-10 months, right?
Yeah, I mean, so one of the things that we fought for is, and again, this is nerdy, but historically over the last 15 years or so, most bills are passed under what's called a closed rule, meaning once it comes out of committee, there are no amendments unless the chairman or the speaker anointed you and allowed you to put an amendment on it, right? And we fought for an open rule process. Now, that can be problematic because we'll have a bill on the floor that'll have 100 amendments. Guess what? You have to vote on all of them unless they're ruled out of order. But if you look back at this bill that we just passed, this appropriations bills, I had 2 amendments that I put forward that passed, and they passed on voice vote because they were good amendments. One blocked funding from the Department of Energy spending any money on mask mandates with the DOE and anything related to the DOE. Then the other one is, they've gone after gas stoves, they've gone after water heaters. They're now doing it with ice makers. And so it peels back the regulation on ice makers. I mean, it's like it's nonsense, right? I mean, you've got a border that's being flooded. You've got a war in Israel. And what's the Biden administration worried about? Ice maker.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
All right, when we return, quick timeout. I want to ask you, because the Biden administration wants $1/10 of $1 trillion. I like saying it that way because it really, in my mind, it galvanizes how much money we're talking about. $1/10 of $1 trillion for, and he bundled these things together, Ukraine, Israel, and quote-unquote what they call border security, which is very, very different than what Andy Ogles would call border security, I think. We'll talk with Congressman Ogles about that in just a moment on The Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. One thing I like about Andy, as we have him in studio, Congressman Andy Ogles of the 5th Congressional District, back in the state, headed home, and he stopped by our studios prior to getting there. And I appreciate that, by the way. I know you want to get to see your family, and, you know, you don't have a lot of time to spend with them before. Well, I guess, actually, they're giving you till Wednesday?
That's right.
Is that the new speaker's decision?
You know, part of it
was to crank that whip, Ogles.
We were supposed to be off, and so because of travel and all they're called CODELs, congressional delegation trips, that they put it out far enough. And quite frankly, you know, for those of us who have young children, trick or treat. Now, look, during the speaker's fight, you know, my family went on fall break, and I missed fall break. I chose to stay in D.C. to work on the speaker process, even though what we were voting on, none of it was binding. It was behind closed doors. You know, I made a commitment to work through that process. But you had some members that just left. They just said, I'm supposed to be off this week, and that they left town, which is, again, one of the reasons why I did that Dear Colleague letter.
We need super texters to come up with ideas what Andy Ogles should go as for Halloween. I think you should go as like zombie Speaker McCarthy.
Well,
wouldn't that be good?
To be honest with you, you know, I fully expected to be in D.C. next week, you know, starting on Monday, to your point.
Right.
And so, you know, I'm going to have to recycle like, you know, Pirates of the Caribbean costume I had a couple years ago or something like that.
One of our, we've got a lot of questions on the super text line, and I want to get to some of these because I promised I would, but the billions of dollars that Joe Biden and the White House wants, they seem to expect that the House of Representatives will allow coupling Israel supplemental funding with additional Ukrainian funding. I think that's a mistake. They threw in, quote unquote, border security, which if you dig a little deeper into that, it's really not border security. It's more processing
That's
people.
right. It's transportation and processing,
right,
which is not security. That's
facilitation. These things need to be separated. They need to be singular votes on each of these three different concepts.
That's
correct?
Right. And there'll be, you know, so go back to the rules fight in January. One of the things that we demanded and fought for was single issue bills. So if you're fighting for, if it's an ag appropriations bill, it's agriculture. If it's the DOD bill, it's for the Department of Defense. If it's Israel, it's Israel. If it's Ukraine, it's Ukraine, et cetera, et cetera. And so the idea that you're going to couple those three or four things together to cram it down our throat, meanwhile, Joe Biden is going to facilitate the invasion of our country at our southern border. And by the way, we've caught Iranians coming through the border in Texas. And those are the ones we caught. No telling how many we didn't catch. And that sucker's wide open. The border is wide open.
I heard Speaker Johnson say last night on Sean Hannity's show, he did an extended interview with Sean, that there would be a consideration for I think it was $14 billion for Israel. I think that's about right. Are you in favor of that? Do you believe that this is a partnership that necessitates helping them monetarily?
Absolutely. So when you think about Israel, they are the tip of the spear in the Middle East for fighting terrorism. They are our eyes and ears on the ground. Without Israel, we'd be flying blind. And so you've got to have a strong, secure Israel. And look, you know, the Palestinian people, you know, so Nikki Haley, and she's walked this back, but she talked about, you know, the United States should bring in 1 million Palestinians. Oh, heck no. They're a radicalized people. And if you don't know anything about the Palestinians, and I'm sorry for every life that gets lost, but that being said, they are taught from birth to hate Israel and America. You can't bring those people into this country. There's a reason why Jordan won't take any Palestinians. Or Egypt. And so why would we take them here? Right. No, no, and no. And so I've got the Gaza Act, which prevents that. And then we've also got the Evict Act, is that if you're from a hostile nation and you're here illegally and you happen to get stopped, you're automatically deported.
Are you concerned at all, considering events from last night where Iranian-backed militias had struck at a couple of air bases, a couple of installations where American soldiers were in place? I think rightly so, the Biden administration responded, but I think that hand needs to be fairly heavy in terms of stopping it right here. My fear is that we're going to see some of this back and forth creep, and before you know it, we're engaged on a military level. What are your thoughts?
So, you know, that is the danger right now, is that we get drawn into a Middle East conflict. You know, I would argue that what we can do to help Israel is to supply them with the munitions and the weaponry to defend themselves, perhaps provide air cover, and then, logistics support. But to have our troops on the ground is a mistake. Other than for like protecting our embassy and some of those things that you would do operationally. And that would also apply with Taiwan. We don't want to get into a conflict with China, right? That everybody loses in that scenario. So you equip Taiwan so you can protect the straits so they can protect themselves. It's a major shipping lane. They're a major producer of semiconductor chips. Like they have a strategic value to our economy and to the global economy. Then you look at Ukraine, it's hard to make that same case, but I'll stop there.
Well, and on the Ukraine front, I mean, obviously the Biden administration wants to slip through billions and billions and billions of dollars of Ukrainian funding by tying it together with Israel, which is a more popular idea amongst the American people and by extension amongst Congress. But with Ukraine, I heard Speaker Johnson once again make reference to this. Your thoughts on it, that, look, we need an accounting. You've said this on our show numerous times, that you would be willing to consider additional funding, but you've got to get an accounting as to what the money went to that we've already given to the Ukrainian government.
When you have Ukrainian public servants buying $7 million mansions, it makes me question where the money's going. But not only do we need an accounting for the money, but what might peace look like, and what's our exit strategy if peace is not attainable? Again, we don't want to get drawn into a European conflict. That's a Europe problem, quite frankly. That's a NATO problem, quite frankly. We pay dues for a reason, and so again, those three things, those questions need to be asked. They need to be answered before we send any more funding to Ukraine. I'm rather agnostic on whether we should engage or not, but I need the information to make an informed decision before we spend more money. Now, Israel and Taiwan, those are no-brainer.
It was almost inevitable. I don't want to say inevitable because I don't want to try to put 2020 vision on something that's already happened, but it feels like we should have seen this coming, considering how weak the Biden administration treated the Iranians.
Yeah, I mean, so we just I'm on the National Security Committee for Financial Services and the Oversight Committee for Financial Services, and we just had a committee hearing on the $6 billion, and in fact tweeted about it. He can't see it because he's banned.
It gives me such great joy. Anyways, I don't know.
I digress. But anyway, but literally in committee, the testimony was that Iran has active agents in our country trying to assassinate American citizens. Now think about that for a minute. Literally, we know it. We've caught them. They're here. And beyond that, they testified that the $6 billion that we're giving or being made available to Iran will find its way to terrorism, and that the world is a more dangerous place because of this. So it's not a surprise that suddenly, because Iran is flush with cash, that Hamas is doing what they're doing, that Hezbollah is doing what they're doing, that the actors of terror around the world are doing what they're doing because they're emboldened, and quite frankly, they got a lot of money in their pocket.
I mean, and it leads back to the White House and the ineffectiveness of the foreign policy of this White House, whoever is making the decisions at the White House, and the importance of next year's election cycle, obviously.
And I'll simplify it. So let's assume for a moment that none of that money would make it into terrorism. You've got $100 in your pocket. It's your budget for the week, and that's your budget. And I give you $100, and it says, you know what? I'm going to give you $100, but you can only use it on groceries. You know what that does? It frees up money in the other pocket.
It reminds me of, and I made this comparison, Andy, you'll get it, political action committees, where, and I've seen this over the years, where I don't want money directly from you, but if you float that money over into this big pool that we'll call a super PAC, and then 2 weeks after you dump $50,000 in there, I dip out of the other end of the pool and I take $50,000. I didn't take money from you, but we both know what happened, and it's the same thing with the Iranians, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Well, look. I appreciate you spending some time with us away from your family. I know you want to get to the family. Thank you for that. I appreciate you. You know what, Bell, we should invite Andy to Valentine's to watch the Georgia Bulldogs whoop up on the Florida Gators.
Yeah, definitely.
We'll be there. You come on out, bring the family. We'll be down
good.
there. Andy, thank you in all sincerity for everything that you do, and we appreciate your time.
No worries, appreciate it.
There's Congressman Andy Ogles. We'll be back in a moment. 134 Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Our schedule has, well, it's off kilter. And that is a failure. It's a failure of the airline system is what it is, but it's also a failure of your humble correspondent, Matt Murphy. In as much as we had Andy Ogles scheduled for 12:30. His flight got delayed, or he was delayed on the tarmac. Therefore, we had to boot back Fry J to this segment of the show. It's a suspended version of Fry J. It's 1:39 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Let's get right to it.
Good morning, Americans. It's Fry J.
It is. And we appreciate our man and what time he gives us. We appreciate his flexibility. He is my best friend. He is a legal expert par excellence, and he's my personal life consultant. He's also my craps consultant. His name is Jay St. Clair, and he joins us on the show. Jay, I'd like to ask you, how you doing?
I'm doing really good, man. I will spend this weekend at Barber Motorsports Park in my Corvette, and I am excited.
I bet you are. That sounds like an awesome time. What's the weather going to do down there, Jay? Or is it going to get cool enough for you to anticipate perhaps a track record?
No, it's not a track record day. It's gonna be in the 80s, so
okay.
it won't be ideal. But I got that data from when Augie drove it, and he's beat me in the last corner by a second, and I know exactly what he's doing. So I'm gonna pucker up and get after it.
I know what he's doing too. He's puckering up. He's squeezing those cheeks tighter than you're squeezing those cheeks. That's what's happening.
Yeah, I tell you what, he's incredible. So I know what I got to do. Now, it's kind of like the Hoover Dam, man. I know what I have to do. I just have my mind has to overcome my body.
Well, you manage that. For those who've never heard this story, Jay and I went out to the Hoover Dam together, and Jay has a legitimate fear of heights. And what I mean by that is, well, a lot of us get the heebie-jeebies when we're looking over the side of a dam the size of Hoover Dam. I know I did. But Jay has a fear of heights that it was fascinating to watch. His body prevented his brain from allowing him to look over the side of the dam.
I couldn't do it. I could not do it.
You managed to jump out of an airplane, though.
Yeah, but like you said, that's so outrageous that it's not real.
Right.
It's like, I am not going to jump out of an airplane 12,000 feet above Earth. This is not really happening.
But before you know it, there you are.
Yeah, I'm off you go.
Plus, I would note that Jay had to do that because he lost a bet regarding his beloved Tennessee Volunteers. I think that's right. I think I'm remembering that correctly.
No, I said if they go 5-0, I'll jump out of the airplane because I knew the fifth game was Florida. They beat them.
Must have caught him at home, Jay, because they can't beat him down in the swamp. I'll tell you that.
Wasn't in the swamp. Sure
all right, Jay. Well, let's dive into a couple of these issues, and I have a very important question to ask you about automobiles before we let you go, because there is a segment of the show coming up that involves automobiles, and I am going to utilize my life consultant as an individual to lean on with regard to this question. That's coming up. Tell me what the latest is in Georgia. With Mark Meadows apparently has met with the prosecutors. They seem to be, and just kind of looking at this from overall, it seems to be a microcosm of what some have tried to do with Trump for a long time, and that is they've tried to get someone from his inner circle to turn against him, and it feels like that's what they're trying to do in Georgia. Am I reading that right?
Well, no, I think that's what they're trying to do. It's actually in the Washington, D.C. case, man. It's not in the
pardon me.
Yeah. He's a defendant in that case. This is the January 6th case that they filed in Washington, D.C. The only defendant in that case is Trump.
I said it wrong.
When he tried to get these alternate electors selected and so forth. And Meadows has been talking with them. It doesn't alarm me a lot. And there's some talk that he may have gotten a deal where they won't prosecute immunity, which makes sense. So I wouldn't talk to him without immunity. But, Matt, here's why I come down on this, and you've heard me say this before. I'm a big fan of the truth. I really am. And Trump is the most investigated person in the history of Western civilization.
That's the truth.
And I'm not exaggerating that. And he knew all this was going to be reviewed. And he's a smart guy. And I just don't believe he said or did anything that he thought was criminal during all this. And so I don't think there is a smoking gun. You know, apparently the deal was there were two camps within the Trump presidency at that time. There were those that said, "Oh, it was a steal. We got to do everything we can to try to get it reversed." And then there was a group of people. I think Ivanka was in this group that said, "You know, we just don't have the evidence. It's time to give up." Well, Meadows was in that group. That we don't have the evidence. We can't prove it. It's time to give up. And I think that's all really that he's got to say. That's that's arguably relevant to any of this. That some people were telling Trump, "You don't have a case. You need to let it go." And well, he didn't take their advice. He took the advice of the other people and said, "No, you do have a case. You need to go after it." That's not criminal. So I don't think it's every little wisp of something that comes out about Trump sends everybody into a manic response. But I just don't see this as being that significant, man. Look, he either robbed the bank or he didn't, right?
Well,
if he robbed the bank, then he ought to go to prison. I don't think he robbed the bank.
Well, and the evidence is that he left office, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he accepted the decision of everyone underneath him, including Mike Pence and all of the rest of the guys, and he howled about it and yelled, "You don't have to do this, you don't have to do that." But he packed his stuff up and left.
That's exactly right. No, it's very well said. And so there. Yeah, I mean, this is election interference at its finest, right? If he were to drop out of the race today, all these cases
would go away. Well, and what frightens me, and I'm just looking at this as a layman, not the subtle nuance of the legal procedures that are going on here. But it feels like they are arguing that Trump did not have, it was criminal behavior to believe as he believed. They either argue that it was criminal to believe that, or they argue he didn't really believe what he says he believed. Which either way doesn't seem like a lot to rest literally a federal case on.
No, that's exactly right. And in the D.C. case, they're saying that he defrauded the country. I don't know how to do that. And then the other thing they're saying is that he's the one that was responsible for the few hours delay in certifying the vote of the Electoral College. They're saying that was his fault. Well, they can't prove that. There's no evidence of that. Everybody wants to blame him because he worked up other people, but I do not believe that he's criminally responsible for people entering the Capitol illegally. And in fact, they don't charge him with that. But they're saying, well, it was your fault that there was a few hours delay in taking your vote for the Electoral College. Mark Meadows has nothing to say to that, man.
Right. Well, and that's what we'll say about that. I rely on you to alleviate, because you get your news from some of these ridiculous partisan sources, and every time we talk about Trump, the sky's falling. I mean, this time they got him. So it's always good to check in with you, Jay, and you kind of dig beyond the headlines. All right, this question coming to you from 2145. Jay, I'm not sure this is in your wheelhouse. Let me assure you, 2145, it is. But is it possible to sue a chiropractor for malpractice? I went for an adjustment. They pinched a nerve. And I have limited mobility in my left arm. To their credit, they're trying to fix it, but it doesn't seem to be healing. It's now been 6 weeks, and I'm still hurting. Andy has written this in. What do you say, Jay?
Yeah, it is absolutely possible to sue a chiropractor. You can sue a ham sandwich. All it takes is a crayon and $400. So, yes, you can sue him, but given those facts, I think you got a pretty good case. With medical malpractice, they are licensed medical care providers. They may not be MDs, but they're licensed by the state, so there's a standard of care and so forth. You need to get in touch with a medical malpractice attorney. It's a specialized field. It takes a certain skill to handle those cases. You got to have expert witnesses and so forth. You need to find a medical malpractice lawyer.
Well, that's good advice right there. Jay St. Clair is with us for one more segment, and I've got a very important question to ask Jay in the next segment. It has everything to do with automobiles. That's right, Bell and Mac. I have my legal expert assisting me on the future Mac attack that's coming up in the 2 o'clock hour, and that's happening next on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. ST997. That's Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Matt Murphy and you until 3 o'clock this afternoon. We'll hand off to the drive and Brian Wilson at that time. Information fueled and opinion driven. A little bit different on Friday. It's a First Amendment Freestyle Friday. We're in the midst of Fry J, an amended and reduced edition of Fry J today, but always good to catch up with our good friend and life consultant, Jay St. Clair. Considering life consulting is a part of your job description, Jay, I need some help. You ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So I need you to understand that my competitors and what I'm about to describe to you are listening. So we need to be careful about the amount of ideas that we give them. But
Ooh, is this soapbox derby?
well, it's kind of is. So
Ooh.
So in the 2 o'clock hour on Fridays, after we have Fry J, we enjoy something we call Friday Mac Attack. And that is involving our good friend and newsman, Mac Morey. He stops by. And on these Mac Attacks, we've started doing what we call weekly drafts. So here's how it works. We figure out a draft order. I won't get into all of that. But Mac comes up with a subject every week. And then we draft our top 3 in any given subject. We have to go in order. You know, me and then Bell and then Mac and then me and then Bell and then Mac. Like last week, it was sandwiches, top sandwiches of all time.
Okay.
And I made a horrible mistake, and I could have had the Reuben as an undrafted free agent, but I put him. I couldn't. Mac. I mean, am I right? The Reuben. I could have left the Reuben.
Oh yeah,
and just picked the Reuben up. But anyway,
no one was scouting. The Reuben.
Nobody was scouting.
You
out
had
the
it
Reuben.
in your back pocket like it was some secret weapon.
Right.
And nobody was even looking for it.
Nobody cared about it. Anyway. So this week, Mac Morey always picks the draft topics. This week, the draft is cars, automobiles. Okay? And I have clarified that when you select a make and model off the board, you're basically getting that make and model. So you don't have to, because that prevents, if you pick a 68 Corvette and then I pick a 69 Corvette. You know what I mean? Yeah. So once Corvette's gone, Corvette's gone. Besides the Chevrolet Corvette, Jay, and it doesn't have to be muscle car, it can be any vehicle.
Yeah.
And does my life consultant have any suggestions for me?
No, absolutely.
Okay.
It has to be a vehicle that would be attainable.
Yes.
You can't pick a McLaren.
Can't be a Ferrari or McLaren.
Well, they define it.
Absolutely obtainable.
I knew he was going to say that.
I mean,
in 19 no.
Delivered in 12 hours.
And you can't have to steal it to get it.
See, that's what Maury's like, well, you can't pick a Ferrari. I was like, well, what if I can afford a Ferrari, Mac Maury? It's not my fault that you're on a Honda
Then
Civic
the quality
salary.
of gifts better be notched up a bit around here.
Well, okay. All right. Because my first clue was going to be James Bond.
Mm-hmm. I was thinking about that.
If I were going to have a car collection, the AMDB5, that's code, Bill. You'll never be able to figure that out.
Aston Martin.
Ooh. Bell. Look at Bell. Bell with the Bond knowledge.
The first one. So something that the average person could afford. Oh, shoot. What's her? Christine, I think was maybe her name.
Pontiac Fury. Christine was not a Pontiac, a Plymouth. A Plymouth Fury.
I'm thinking of the Nicolas Cage movie Gone in 60 Minutes or something. I forgot the name of the car, but that would definitely be on my list.
What year didn't you have a Chevrolet Nova?
Yeah, well, I had a Chevelle, really. I mean, the first one. So back then, it was odd. They just put Malibu, Nova, put a lot of different names on them. But I had a 68 Chevelle SS396. Great car.
Mm-hmm.
I'd go with the 69, but definitely Chevelle. Let's see. What I'm talking about it's the Mustang, the Shelby GT500. I mean, that's just one of the great American cars ever.
Well, I'll tell you, I looked this up online, and do you know what is widely considered to be the greatest muscle car of all time? There were only 2 made.
Wow. I don't know what that is.
1967 Shelby Cobra 427 Super Snake. Huh?
Nice.
But
Yeah.
I think
and then the other thing I would consider is the wings, the Daytona and Plymouth wings, Richard Petty.
Oh yeah, the Road Runner, is that?
Yep.
The Road Runner.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
And,
all right,
and
this is great advice, Jay. Great advice. I feel like I've got this draft down cold. Thank you to my good friend and colleague and life consultant Jay St. Clair. There it is. That's Friday. Coming up, Friday Mac Attack. We'll have a little fun with this thing and call it a weekend before we hand off to Brian Wilson in the drive. That's coming up right after the news, and the news comes up right now on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Two o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Right now, 78 degrees, a cloudy day in Nashville, and expecting some showers over the weekend that may leak into Monday here in Middle Tennessee. Complete weather forecast just a few minutes away. Manhunt in Maine. Divers heading into the water off a dock in Lewiston where mass shooting suspect Robert Card had a boat and near where his car was abandoned. Michelle Franzen.
In Lewiston, Maine, hundreds of law enforcement and tactical teams are searching for mass shooting suspect Robert Card. The Army reservist is accused of killing 18 and injuring 13 others. So far, police don't have a motive, and they're chasing hundreds of tips and leads in the state.
Divers heading into the water off a dock in Lewiston where mass shooting suspect Robert Card had a boat and near where his car was found abandoned.
Checking for evidence, checking for potential bodies.
But Maine Public Safety Commissioner Mike Sawchuk cautions.
We have a lot of other irons in the fire. So I'm not saying that the suspect, we know the suspect is in the water and this is what we're doing.
It all means the suspect is still at large and there's a hunt for him, dead or alive. Derek Dennis, ABC News, Lewiston, Maine.
Authorities say Card is considered armed and dangerous. A shelter-in-place order remains in effect for thousands of residents in Lewiston and surrounding communities. Residents for now grieving behind closed doors until police catch the suspect.
And Card is said to have struggled with mental health in his life, having heard voices and staying at a facility, even voicing wanting to shoot up a military training facility that he was associated with. Now over to an update between the Israel-Hamas war. IDF officials announced this afternoon that they are planning to expand operations into Gaza later tonight, appearing to escalate the fighting against Hamas inside the Gaza Strip. Luis Martinez has the latest.
What we have seen is that there have been these raids that have been undertaken by ground forces into parts of Gaza. We have seen some Israeli armor move across the border, but they have returned back to Israeli territory. So potentially when you see this comment that they are expanding their ground operations, potentially it indicates that it is something beyond what we have seen over the last couple of nights.
And some money news, the average cost of a gallon of gasoline falling for the fifth consecutive week, and several factors could send prices even lower in the coming weeks. Here in Middle Tennessee, the average price, $3.24 per gallon, according to Gas Buddy. That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
USS stands for United Structural Systems. Let's talk about what they do in your home. You don't want to call them. You don't. You don't want, I mean, if you think about it, you don't, because calling USS indicates that you have identified a potential problem in your home, and it could be a significant problem that could lead to damage down the road. But calling them is essential in solving that. When it comes to large home repairs, a lot of times we like to pretend that we don't see the warning signs. See those warning signs and understand you have someone in your corner, and that is United Structural Systems, a local company that believes in you, helping you solve the issues that involve your home, your foundation, your waterproofing, your concrete leveling in your driveway without overcharging you and without over-diagnosing the issue that you face. And that is a problem in the industry that USS identified long ago. That's why they have 25,000 plus satisfied customers who have peace of mind. Thank you to USS, United Structural Systems. They serve Middle Tennessee, Southern Kentucky, and Northern Alabama, and they want to serve you. Go online at USSTN.com. You'll see incredible testimonials there. Homeowners simply trust USS. 615-488-7855. 488-7855 for USS. They guarantee their best. United Structural Systems. Here we go. It is the Matt Murphy Radio Show, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Good afternoon. Welcome in. Glad you're with us. It's 2:06. The ground operation in Gaza is expanding, according to the Israeli Defense Forces, who offered testimony to that effect just earlier this afternoon. We're monitoring that situation. We're monitoring Lewiston, Maine, where there is really no update in that situation. Here's where we are. This is my assessment of where we are. You have this dastardly evil act where an individual, a suspect in this case, obviously in the American system of justice, you don't determine them guilty until they're proven said same, but the guilt is pretty present based on the evidence that we have seen publicly and on major media networks over the last couple of days, that the individual in question, Robert Card, is responsible for the death of 18 and the injuring of, I think, 13 is the number that I saw. He is believed to be armed and dangerous if he's still alive. What I would suggest is that the possibility is greater that he is dead than alive, inasmuch as he apparently left a note. He apparently left his gun and other belongings behind at a location where he left his vehicle, went, authorities believe, on a boat, and either attempted to escape on that boat or committed suicide on that boat. Either way, he either committed suicide or has set a scene wanting to convince authorities that he has committed suicide. One way or the other, the ongoing search continues in Lewiston, Maine, and the surrounding areas, and we'll continue to update you on those matters as more information becomes available all afternoon long, to include Mac Morey, who will be a part of the drive.
We need one more update.
What do you got? Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I haven't heard. What's the latest?
The murder hornet, I do have an update. I found a itty-bitty, teeny-tiny handwritten suicide note by the murder hornet. And so I believe that the murder hornet recognized that there would be no murder in their future, and that it would be best just to go ahead. And so I think we don't have verification of said note, but we're sending that off to the lab. So we believe the hornet is no more. That's what I think.
Toxicology will come back. We'll see.
You gotta verify these things. You can't just jump on these matters.
Didn't have a stinger. It was an AR-15.
That was you making that joke. That's a little close to home. Anyway, so yes, there's the murder hornet update. We've not heard from the murder hornet since about 1:30 yesterday. So I feel comfortable that we are clear of any sort of murder hornet. You had forgotten about the danger that existed in the studio, had you not?
Yeah, no, I did, because I would have walked in here much more
trepidatiously.
Thank you. That's what I was going for.
Nice pull there.
Nice.
I like that we're thinking along the same lines.
I hope we're not anymore. I hope we're about to be on different Tracks.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my preferred segment of the week because of two things. One, because I get a lengthy opportunity to speak to my good friend and colleague, Mac Morey. Secondarily, it signals to me that the weekend is about to begin. We call it Friday Mac Attack, ladies and gents. Woo. All right, Friday Mac Attack with Mac Morey. He takes off the news hat, he lets that hair down, and we casually walk through the mind that is Mac Morey. Bell K and I alongside Mac Morey. This is your attack, so explain to the folks what we've started doing on these Friday Mac Attacks.
Yeah, this is our third or fourth week now in this new little system on Fridays. We're liking it. We think the people are receiving it well.
Yeah,
Become a part of it on the super text line because what I'm about to say is totally interactive. So we're drafting different things each week. We decide an order. We'll get to the order decision-making process here in a minute. But last week, as Matt said earlier, we drafted sandwiches.
Mm-hmm.
We drafted, what did we draft 2 weeks ago? We drafted...
we did cereal.
Cereal.
We did cereal. And there's been one other.
Yeah, the first one was something good too. We have a good time.
That's good.
So this one we're going to do cars. Now the caveat with this draft is that this is not, you're not drafting the Batman mobile or in the McLaren. Like this is what's actually attainable to the average American.
Something that would be realistic.
Yes. In your life.
And not necessarily unexpensive, but I mean it can be expensive. But I mean like, for example, I used, as an example with Jay St. Clair, I used the Shelby Cobra.
Yeah.
The 1967 Shelby Cobra 427 Super Snake. Only 2 were made. Only one is in existence. And the one that's in existence sold in 2021 for $5.5 million. So that would be an example of an unfair selection. It's a little ridiculous.
Come on.
So...
But you could say Mercedes. You could say a certain type of Mercedes.
That's exactly.
Of course.
I would say Mercedes, BMW, these types of things. That's all good. That's fair game.
Yep.
Lamborghini. I think we're being a little ridiculous.
Yes.
I mean,
exactly.
None of us can whip out a checkbook and write a $500,000 check for a Lamborghini. Well, at least 2 of us cannot.
Yeah. Mac can, but you and I can't.
That's what I was about to say.
The podcast is really doing well, guys. Seriously.
It's monetized. It's going so great.
What's the name of that podcast?
Behind the Box Score. Yeah.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
By the way, occasionally, Maury's so good. Occasionally, he reminds me that he's still a little wet behind the ears. Like a couple of weeks ago, he was lamenting the fact that pretty soon he was going to be off his mom's insurance. I'm not making that up. Did you not? You're like, dadgummit.
I was like, I'm going to have to start doing that. Oh, no.
I was like, I figure he's banking that sweet insurance money in anticipation of his Aston Martin or whatever he's going to buy.
Of course.
I have a couple of questions.
Great.
All right.
Let's get it out of the way.
So we're talking make and model, right?
Yes.
Right? That's what we're doing. Make and model of a vehicle.
Yeah.
And then year doesn't matter.
Year doesn't matter.
Right? Because, for example, Chevrolet Corvette.
Great.
Make, model.
Good pick.
Because we don't want to do like you go 72 and I go 73 whatever because I really wanted that vehicle. Okay, so make and model of any vehicle. Does it have to have 4 wheels?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, it's a car. No bikes. Sorry.
What do you mean no bikes?
No bikes.
No
This is
bikes.
cars.
Okay, one of these days we're going to do transportation and we're going to do bikes, do 18-wheelers.
I'm going to have like an F-18 or something.
That's when Mac will pick public bus.
We go.
We go. All right, so the way that we have done the draft order, we do odds or evens. The 3 of us do odds and evens, and the odd man gets to go first, and then the other 2 have to settle it after that. So you ready in there, Belle?
Yeah.
All right, ready? Odds and evens, 1, 2, 3, go!
All the same.
All the same. Okay, Ray, odds and evens, 1, 2, 3, go!
Yes!
Oh, yes. You switched on me. Okay, Mac Morey just got the number 1 selection in the draft. All right, Belle, Matt can see what I got up here.
Okay.
Am I odd or am I even?
Even.
I'm third. Okay, so the draft order is now Mac Morey, Belle K, and Matt Murphy. Belle, did you get us any flow music this time around? I meant to mention this, by the way. Anything from now on the Friday Mac Attacks, for me, anything from Herb Alpert is on the table.
Oh, okay. I don't know who that is,
anything from Herb
that sounds
Alpert
good.
is on the table. But whatever you can provide us today, considering that, These segments only come up once a week, and
yeah, of course.
All right, bring that down. Let's get that to the background. McMorey, the draft is automobiles.
Yes.
And you are the first selection in the 2023 Friday Mac Attack Automobile Draft. McMorey, you're on the clock.
I've got a well-rounded team. I think I could take any of my cars in any round.
Wait, before we do this anymore, but before we go any further, Bell, what is your current vehicle? I think we should do this. What are you currently driving?
Ford Escape.
Ford Escape.
Yeah.
All right, I've got a GMC Sierra pickup truck, 2500. You, McMurray?
Like an 04 Lexus.
Lexus.
Yeah.
Is that a Mama Mori hand-me-down?
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh,
yeah.
that's okay.
It's great.
It's okay.
Works
That's
awesome.
great. It's wonderful.
Yes.
I mean,
Works
you like
awesome
it
after rebuilding that engine.
Yeah, I did have to do that, but we're good now.
All right, now that we have established where we are,
Yeah, back to reality.
Our team here. What do you got?
Ford Bronco.
Ford Bronco.
That's fair.
That's a good vehicle. That's a solid
Yeah, you
vehicle.
could go classic.
You could go old school.
Or the new ones, really nice.
No, I get it. I like the selection. I appreciate where you're going with that.
Boom. Okay, great.
All right,
Bronco.
Bell?
Nobody is going to have this on their list, and nobody is going to care about.
Here comes the
having this on
Reuben.
this
Here
list.
comes the Reuben sandwich. I feel the Reuben sandwich.
Since I was like 11 years old, and I first saw one of these cars, I wanted one just because I thought it looked cool.
Yeah, I like the Reuben sandwich too.
Triumph TR7.
Yeah, I was going to say, can you give me a quick?
I'll give you a little something here.
Yeah, I don't know that.
Triumph
TR7.
Is that a British?
Well, it's made by Triumph.
You could have waited for the third round, though.
See, that's
It's just
nobody's the convertible. I assume.
Cool.
No, I preferred the hardtop actually because it gave it a little more of an angular look.
Yeah, this looks cool.
No, that doesn't. No, don't be nice to him. What color?
No,
I got lemon yellow,
brown.
Yeah,
brown.
Boy, that.
Yeah, you're right. The more I see this,
that just looks like Bell K, doesn't it? Doesn't it?
It's like trying to be a Corvette or a Mustang, but not really.
Yeah, it's the poor man's Firebird, basically.
Yeah, okay.
Well, then why didn't you go Firebird?
Because to me that looks cooler because it's more angular.
It does have
and
angles.
You got to remember, I was 11 years old, too, when I first saw that. But I've been in one. I've ridden in one. They ride like garbage.
Man, those headlights, they're going to break on you.
Oh, yeah.
Those hidden headlights, the pop-up lights like that. Okay, you're going to leave this to the third selection in the first round of the draft. I'm going to take it. No, you've already made your bed. Look, there's plenty of muscle cars out there to choose from. We're going to have plenty of time to talk muscle cars. We need to talk about the Jeep. I am going Jeep.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
That's a good choice.
Nice.
Jeep. I mean, I could go Army, 1954 Willis.
Lots of choices there. A lot of variety.
1984 CJ7 Jeep is mine of choice. Now, I would say to you men, the Grand Cherokee I don't think is considered what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the classic Jeep. 2-door, 4-door, whatever. I'm going Jeep for my first one. I feel good about it.
This CJ7, man.
That is badass.
This is sexy.
I mean, that's classic. I mean, that's between 84 and like 88 before they squared the headlights off. I'm going Jeep for my selection. McMorey, we are on to round number 2, believe it or not, already in the 2023 Friday Mac Attack Automobile Draft. For the second selection in the draft, McMorey, please.
You mentioned muscle cars. I think I'm going to go there now. And just to preface, favorite car, 1969 Stingray Corvette. And I love the classic Corvettes. These newer models and even 80s, 90s, doesn't really do it for me. I got to go back to the 60s and 70s where it really
spaceshipy now.
Yeah, just not really the angles. Talking about angles, not really where I want there. But Mustangs, they went through a rough patch in the 90s, early 2000s, mid 2000s, early 2010s. Give me a Mustang. That's my pick.
Ford Mustang. So we got Ford Bronco.
I'm a little Ford over
Ford
here.
Mustang. So we got a little Ford action going on McMurray's side of things. Bell K, selection number 2, please.
Pontiac Firebird.
Wow. So he did. It's weird because he picked the lesser
the
Firebird
crappy,
first.
He picked the crappy Firebird, we'll call
exactly.
and then he went with the Firebird.
My first car ever was a Firebird.
Look, the
wow,
Firebird.
I think my dad's was too.
76.
If you
That's
go,
cool.
and you could go a lot worse than the Firebird. The like the late '60, early '70 convertible Firebird. Whew. I'm a big fan of the convertibles, which makes this selection difficult for me. I feel like I have to go muscle car. You got to do well. You don't have to, but you want something with a little pop to it.
Yeah, of course.
And gosh, you leave the door open. Why wouldn't I take it? Because there are so many different generations. Yes, you're right that some of the generations went through some problems, but now you got the mid-range engine. The C8 is what I'm talking about. This modern Corvette is so gorgeous. It is. And then you could go back to the Stingray, the beautiful lines of the Stingray in the early 1970s. I can't help myself. I cannot believe in the 6th overall selection.
Yeah, it's nice.
That the Chevrolet Corvette is still on the board.
Still.
Gotta take it. Can't do without it. I'm going Chevy Corvette. There you go.
That's really nice.
I got Jeep and Corvette. I feel so good about my pick so far.
A lot of variety to choose in that whole line, too.
I'll tell you what.
I went Mustang above Corvette, and I'm like, Corvette though.
I feel like Bell. I know we're in the middle of the draft, and really, it's going to take some draft review to really absorb where each team is. But they're going to call it your Reuben moment. You know that, right, Bell?
Yeah.
Now I've got a Ford team. This is my last pick.
So far, that's correct.
And I could end it there, and I thought about this, but I've got a Bronco, which is kind of truck-ish, not exactly, but it's got that sort of vibe. And then I've got a muscle car, speedster, pick up the lady, top down, speeding on the freeway. I got that. So now I'm going to round it off here, go away from Ford, give me the Volkswagen van, the
classic
hippie.
That's like a little Type 2 transport there.
Yeah.
The classic VW microbus.
Yep, that's what I want.
Plus, you can trick it out and live in it after you get thrown out of your house.
That is a fabulous selection. That's good. I like that.
Thank you.
I like that.
Thank you.
Went away from the Fords and got over in the Volkswagen. Volkswagen's German 4.
It's a Germans. What?
Volkswagen is German 4.
The people's car.
People mover. Yeah, or people's car. Yeah. Correct.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Bell, what do you got?
My favorite car that I've ever owned was what I had in the early 2000s, and I would die to have another one, and that would be the BMW 3 Series.
Nice.
BMWs. You can't go wrong.
Most solid car
German
I've ever
vehicles,
driven in my life. It just felt like it was just
smooth.
Oh, the driving on the handling on it was just incredible.
Over the years, the Germans have perfected doing certain things. They wage war pretty well. They also make some pretty good vehicles.
Pretty well.
Well, that's true. They start them well. They don't end them very good. But they make some pretty good vehicles. I like that.
That's a good pick.
So I like you. I mean, I went classic Jeep. That's and I've got the
Truck-ish.
convertible options. It's not it's out there, but I feel like I need a truck. I need a truck. So I'm going to go GMC. Now, that would include the truck that I currently own, but more specifically, the dream truck for me. And apparently it's the dream truck for a lot of people because if you look on pricing, the 1974 GMC pickup truck.
Does that one take a ladder to get into like yours does?
No, doesn't have to, although you can put the bigger wheels on it. You can lift it up a little bit. But if you go back to 74, It's got a great classic look to it. It's old school.
Love this.
None of this back seat, none of these four-door nonsense. That's the truck that you get your lady in. You get her over to the middle of that seat, that bench seat. Oh, yeah. She's sitting in the middle of that thing with you. She's not over there next to the door. She's right beside you, right where that stick shift is.
I can't think of a single car these days that still has that middle
seat. Bench seating.
Yeah, it doesn't exist anymore, does it?
So there you go. There's our list. What's on your list? I've got I'll tell you what. We'll do a quick timeout, and we'll come back. We'll do some text before we go to McMorry in the news on Super Talk 99.7 W10. Hey, friends, it's Matt Murphy. Let's talk about what you're eating this weekend. I mean, you got something planned, maybe for a football game, or perhaps you have friends over, you're anticipating Halloween. Whatever you're doing, if you're cooking in the kitchen, you need to be cooking with Savory Spice. Now, let me tell you what happened to me last night. The wife had some taco soup mix that she got from Savory Spice the last time we were down at the Franklin location just off the square next to Gray's Pharmacy. Holly recommended it. She made it, and instead of using ground beef, because, I'm watching the weight, she used ground turkey. It was incredible. The flavor was, dramatic. And I normally spice my food a little additionally. Because, I like a little salt, a little extra of that smoked alderwood sea salt. Didn't have to spice anything. It was spiced perfectly, flavored perfectly. Thank you to Savory Spice. They've got taco soup for you. They've got anything you can imagine down at Savory Spice. For the experienced chef, they've got the spices that you need to up that food game. And for somebody that's trying to learn what to do in the kitchen, they've got some pre-made mixes for you to help you understand how these blends come together. It's all in Savory Spice. 2 locations to serve. One's in Franklin, as I mentioned, just off the square. The other, L&L Market in Nashville on Charlotte Pike. Go by and see them. There comes a time where it's time to up that food game. And you up your food game by upping your spice game. You up your spice game with the one and only Savory Spice.
The latest in the Maine manhunt, plus some crime here in Tennessee. That and more 30 minutes after the hour of 2 o'clock. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you much, Mac Morey. 2:28. That news coming up in just a couple of minutes. Some of your comments on the Super Text line regarding the Friday Mac Attack automobile draft of 2023. Many of you weighing in on your selections and offering your opinions on our selections. Would we consider a Lotus to be out of bounds for our purposes? Yeah. That's what I thought, too. Several of you are agreeing with my concept of the GMC, although I did get this. Hey, Matt, Hey, Matt, GMC stands for Gay Man's Chevy. And then the same person followed up by going, Matt, I know you're not gay. Ha.
Don't you make assumptions either way.
That's true. The Chevelle Malibu's getting a lot of love. The 74 GMC Grand Sierra with the 454 brown Ferrari leather baseball stitching. I absolutely love. Oh, no, he has one. Oh, I'm looking at it right now. 1967, you need to talk to me. We can you and I need to make a deal. That is a pretty vehicle right there. I like that. Let's find out if that's in my wheelhouse. Camaro getting a lot of love. as are BMWs, Mercedes getting some love. Someone is suggesting how in the world we did not select a Mercedes S-Class as a you're right. I mean, they're too many, and it's very fair. The 1950 Ford Custom Deluxe, I guess that would fall under the F100 or F150 line. I thought about the F150, and then I realized GMC is just a better brand of vehicle. So there you go, which is why I didn't go with Ford.
No one's, congratulating me on the Volkswagen bus pick. I mean,
I did.
Okay, you guys did. You're right.
That was a great pick.
Thank you, Bell. You're right.
Ray says, I have a cheap Willie, Matt.
Don't change subjects. We're talking about cars.
I was about to say, enough about your personal life, Ray. We're talking about automobiles. Come on, man. Monte Carlo SS, Chrysler Town Country minivan, and the you know what? I'll give I forget who it was. I lost it there. Somebody said the Chevrolet Suburban. I'll give you that. One of the first people movers of the SUV variety in the United States of America was the Chevy Suburban. So all good selections. That's going to wrap up the 2023 automobile draft. We do it on every Friday Mac Attack. It's time for the news, 2:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Minutes after the hour of 2 o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Right now, 79 degrees, a cloudy day in Nashville, and expecting some showers over the weekend here in Middle Tennessee. Those chances starting mainly tomorrow afternoon into Monday. Full forecast coming up 2 minutes. As the search for Maine mass shooting suspect Robert Card continues, a shelter-in-place order remains in effect for Lewiston, Auburn, Bowdoin, and Lisbon. Community members are not only mourning the deaths of 18 people, but they're on edge, waiting for any word on the whereabouts and the status of the suspect. Lewiston's strong signs have been popping up around the community, and 34-year-old Alex McMahon has been helping to make and hang the signs, saying he just wants to do something to uplift the community in a hard time.
A show of Lewiston's strength. The sign says Lewiston strong. We actually started kind of pushing this movement last night. We put it up on the sign, the marquee at one of our stores, and we put one downtown at the entrance to town.
And divers have been heading into the water off a dock there in Lewiston where the mass shooting suspect Robert Card had a boat, and it was near where his car was abandoned. And here in Tennessee right now, a missing teenager. The TBI is searching for 19-year-old Holland Snap. Snap was last seen on October 15th in the area of Bell Ridge Drive in Kingsport. Snap's 4 foot 8 inches tall and weighs around 110 pounds with brown hair, hazel eyes. Anyone with information is asked to call 1-800-TBI-FIND. That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Hey, folks, it's Matt Murphy for Tennessee Men's Clinic. Gentlemen, let's talk for a moment. Are you feeling sluggish or run down? Do you feel like, my age has caught up with me, Matt? I'm 50 or 55 or maybe even younger, 45, and you just experience a loss of energy during that time in your life. Don't believe this because it's not true. Sometimes naturally occurring things in your body start diminishing over time. It doesn't have to be this way. We've seen this with T levels and other levels within your body, man. And as those levels go down, you lose that vitality, that energy that you once had. But it doesn't have to be that way. At the Tennessee Men's Clinic, they will put you through your paces. Now, that's not a bad thing. They will sit with you. They'll talk with you about your energy levels. They'll take a little blood. They'll analyze that, and they'll figure out exactly where you are on some of those numbers that you need to know about. And one of those numbers might be causing that lowered energy level. Now, it might be sleep. It might be something else that's causing it. But if they can fix it at the Tennessee Men's Clinic, they can do it simply. They can get you back up, and that energy level can get back up right along with it. Let's talk Tennessee Men's Clinic. Give them a call today and schedule an appointment. 615-208-9090. 208-9090. Or go to TennesseeMen'sClinic.com for more information. 2 locations to serve you. One's in Cool Springs. The other's in Midtown Nashville. Tennessee Men's Clinic. Super Talk 99.7 WTN 237, winding down the Matt Murphy portion of the broadcast day, not just for the day, but the week. We'll hand off to the drive with Brian Wilson coming up in just a moment. So we have a few other items to tell you about before we get out of here. A lot of you reacting on the super text line to our Friday Mac Attack draft of automobiles. I drafted the Jeep, the Chevrolet Corvette, and the GMC truck. I feel good. I feel good about my draft. Bell drafted some vehicle that I've never heard of.
Triumph TR7.
Which he described as a poor man's Firebird. Then he immediately drafted the Firebird.
Correct.
And what did you do last?
BMW 3 Series.
That's a good one.
Yeah, the first pick was weird, though.
McMorey went a couple of
Ford. Don't make fun of my
picks.
picks. I defended your stupid Volkswagen wagon.
I know. I'll make fun of your picks. You were laughing at me all weekend long with my Reuben selection from last week. So don't you start with me, pal.
Also,
you can have your Reuben.
That is the token, word now, the phrase we use for a pick
That's
that just
such a
shouldn't have been.
Reuben.
It's such a Reuben, bro.
That's such a Reuben, man. Oh, come on, buddy. You could have done better. You could have left it on the bench.
Yeah,
You can pick that one up later. That's a Reuben. Someone wrote in, this was Rocco who wrote in, did anybody draft the Porsche 911 or the Subaru WRX? And I responded, no, we are dudes.
That's just mean.
Subaru.
You know what? You could
WRX.
have said that a lot more succinctly, and it just would have been, go away.
I mean,
I'm looking at this WRX. No, we didn't draft this.
of course.
No.
Come on.
What?
What are you talking about? Mac always wanted one of them BMW buses but also was told that you have to rewire the whole thing because they're a death trap. Oh, no, I guess he's saying that he always wanted one of those. But they're a death trap. Well, we're going to assume that whatever vehicle that we get is functioning.
It's full working condition, yes.
Is that, does that I don't know, does the VW microbus come with, is it fully loaded?
Why not?
You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, it comes ready to go. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I had a guy.
That's literally one of those vehicles that people would laugh at you if you were driving it towards the end of the series. And now people pay big bucks to be able to find an old one.
Those things have sewing machine engines, though, man. I mean, I think they just have the Beetle engine in them.
I think you're right.
Really?
Those are
wow.
not. Those are sewing machine. I've driven one. I had a buddy of mine in college had one of those. It was a 1972 VW microbus Type 2 transport. And he had cleaned out all the seats. And so it was just a driver's seat, a passenger seat, and he had a recliner in the back of the vehicle. That was all. Just a recliner that he had bolted down, and that was the back seat. That's pretty good. That's college, baby. Okay, real quick, some news to cover for you before we hand off to Brian Wilson in the drive. I'm not one to go over polling data, but I took interest in this enough so that I want to share it with you. The Nashville-based Beacon Center of Tennessee recently published results of a poll that it engaged in earlier in the week, revealing how registered Tennessee voters would vote in the 2024 presidential and Senate races. The think tank polled 1,181 registered voters in the volunteer state from October 5th to October 16th, earlier this month, regarding the 2024 presidential election. And this is the most obvious of results. The think tank's poll shows that Donald Trump has a commanding lead, although I would suggest to you it's not quite as much as I thought it would be, over Joe Biden. 61% to 30% in a head-to-head matchup in Tennessee amongst likely voters. 61% to 30%, according to the Beacon Center. Trump's head-to-head matchup against Biden in Tennessee has grown 10 points since the previous poll released in July. That makes sense. However, this was of interest to me regarding presidential politics. And if we see these types of results across the board, what I'm about to tell you, I expect that there will be a move to get Robert F. Kennedy out of the race somehow. I'm not saying anything untoward or criminal or anything like that. I'm not suggesting any of that. But I think there will be someone that attempts to get him out of the race somehow by hook or by crook. When you put Robert Kennedy in the presidential race, Donald Trump's number shrinks from 61% to 48%. Joe Biden's shrinks to 23%. And Robert F. Kennedy Jr. in the latest Beacon poll gets 19% of the vote in the state of Tennessee.
That is flat out massive for a third-party candidate.
For a third-party candidate, I understand the man's got name ID. And I understand that he comes with a little bit of gravitas considering his position on COVID-19 specifically and vaccines more broadly. 19% is a massive number. Now, Donald Trump lost more than Joe Biden. If you believe that they're
just still significantly ahead.
No, he's significantly ahead, but Donald Trump goes from 61% to 48%, so he loses 13% of the vote. Joe Biden goes from roughly 30% to 23%, so he only loses 7% of his vote. So according to this poll, and there are more Republicans in Tennessee than there are Democrats, so obviously you're going to pull from that. That pool is bigger to begin with, but he's pulling more from Trump. The question has been, who does Robert Kennedy Jr. steal from more? Does he steal from Biden more or from Trump? I've always believed that he steals from Biden more than he does Trump, but this poll indicates the opposite.
Yeah,
that he's stealing more from Trump, which if that holds true nationally, that could be a problem for Trump more so than Joe Biden.
My one suggestion to him would be don't use Secret Service for your security, because that ain't worked out too well for your family. in the
Well,
past.
yeah, I'll tell you. I mean, can you imagine being? I mean, that's got to be tough. Just being a candidate and putting yourself out there.
Well, especially with you being the son of one of the two that got assassinated.
Yeah. More results from the Beacon Center of Tennessee poll in a primary matchup between Republican primary candidates amongst Republican primary voters. This is a sample size of roughly about 500. Who would you most likely vote for in the Republican primary in 2024? As you would expect, Donald Trump has a commanding lead over second place Ron DeSantis. Trump, 63%. DeSantis, 16%. Nikki Haley, Vivek Ramaswamy come in at 3% respectively. Mike Pence at 2%. All the other GOP candidates, Tim Scott, Asia Hutchinson, Chris Christie, whatever, polled at 0%. A combined 12% of polled voters said that they would vote for someone else in the GOP primary, or they remain unsure of who they would vote for. Don't know their butts from a hole in the ground. In the Tennessee Senate race, if the Senate race were held today, Marsha Blackburn's up for re-election next year. For whom would you vote? Marsha Blackburn or Gloria Johnson? Gloria Johnson, as you might expect, getting her butt kicked 49% to 29%, with 23% saying that they're undecided. That's closer than I would have thought. And obviously, it's early. We're still in 2023. There's a long way to go between here and there. But once again, that is closer than I would have anticipated. In the meantime, the Beacon Center asked a few other questions of likely voters to include their job approval rating of Governor Bill Lee. Do you generally approve or disapprove of his job performance? 47% of Tennesseans say they approve of Bill Lee's job performance. 25% say they do not. So it feels like that's a little underwater for Bill Lee as well. But, once again, you've got, a full 26 or 27% of the population not knowing their butts from a hole in the ground or not choosing to answer the question. So I thought that was interesting enough to share it with you, particularly the presidential results. When you add RFK Jr. into the mix, RFK Jr. takes away, at least if you are to believe this poll, and, believe it at your own peril. What do I always say, though? Polls are snapshots in time. They mean nothing other than the day that they are taken. I don't like polls that ask you if the election were held today, which is some of what this question asked, because the election is not being held today. There's months and months and months until we get to a primary election, much less a presidential election. So it's more important that we establish where we are then when the election is actually held. But that said, I did find it interesting that RFK polled at 19% and that he pulled more from Trump than he did from Joe Biden. 247.
I don't think Ross Perot was polling that well at this point.
Oh, gosh.
In that election.
You know what? I think Perot, the first time around, before he dropped out, he was polling in the high teens. And I could be wrong. I'll look it up. I might ask Brian Wilson about it, because Brian, I would probably remember better than me. But I want to say, because Perot, he ran, then he dropped out, then he got back in. And he never went to the levels that he was when he was in the first time around. But I want to say that he was 16, 17% first time around. And when Ross Perot was in the race, no president got above no president got a plurality of the vote. I think I'm saying that correctly, too. Yes.
Yeah, I think so.
248, Supertalk 99.7 WTN. We'll check in with the aforementioned Mr. Wilson coming up in moments and put a lid on this week right after this on Supertalk. Super Talk 99.7 WTN 256. Winding down our portion of the day, handing off to Brian Wilson in mere moments, and we speak to Brian. Now, before I talk to Brian, I will correct myself because I was wrong, and I kind of identified it. I wasn't talking about I was talking majority, and I knew I was wrong. Bill Clinton never got a majority. He did get a plurality of the votes, meaning most of the votes, more than any other candidate cast. I think I've got that right. Now, Brian Wilson remembers more about the 1992 presidential election than I probably ever knew. And he joins us now to talk about that, amongst other things. Hey, Brian, how are you?
Yeah, you were asking about how high did Ross Perot get, and I think I'm correct in saying that he got the highest vote of any independent candidate in the modern era, and I think his high watermark was 19%.
That's a good bit. Do you think it is possible that RFK Jr. maintained? I was doing this Beacon poll where he cast at 19%. I don't think that I think that's a little ambitious to suggest that he would get that much, but I think you would pull from both Trump and Joe Biden.
I've seen polls that show that, both ways, that it pulls more from Trump, that he pulls more for Biden, and then I've seen polls that suggest it's sort of an even draw. But I will say this about RFK. I know that many people who listen to you and me, they're sort of enamored with this guy. And I think it's because they agree with him on vaccines and maybe a couple of other things. But nobody's really gone after him because, it hasn't really reached the point where he was a concern. It's getting to that point. And so they'll start aiming a little fire. Both, I think, Trump and Biden will. And I think when you start to look at his actual voting record, the things that he believes, he's very liberal on many, many things. And I think that Republican voters are going to be sort of talked out of thinking that he is a viable option over time. But that really hasn't started yet, and he's sort of getting a free pass at the moment.
No, I would agree with that assessment as well. I think the more deeply you dive into other issues away from the COVID-19, the vaccines, and his stand against the vaccine, I would think that he appeals to people because of his genuine nature, right? You feel like RFK is his own man, regardless of what people tell him he should or shouldn't, what positions he should or shouldn't take, or what stands he should or shouldn't take. At least he is a genuine person, and that seems to appeal to a lot of Americans now. They're tired of the typical stale politicians, if you will. What's coming up, Brian? What's going on the drive?
Well,
what do you got?
Real quick,
yeah.
One RFK Jr. story when he was a member of the House. I was sent over. We were doing a series of silly little features about people's favorite foods and show us how you cook it. And some of them were politicians, some of them were sort of celebrities. And he taught me how to make a peanut butter and banana sandwich, which apparently is very, very important. And I showed him how to make what we did in West Texas, which was a peanut butter and honey sandwich.
Peanut butter and honey sounds a lot better than peanut butter and banana.
I think peanut butter, bananas, and honey sounds really good.
Well, as hungry as I am right now, I'm going for it. I'm going for it as I listen to The Drive with Brian Wilson, and he's coming up in mere seconds on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Right after the news, Mac Morey's got that. Brian's up next. I hope you have a wonderful weekend, folks. Hope your team wins, unless your team is the Florida Gators. Otherwise, go Dogs. We'll talk to you on Monday. Until then, have a great weekend, folks. So long.